Hyrule is a land of magic, monsters, and crystal-clear rivers that practically beg you to drink from them. But just because something looks refreshing doesn't mean it won't send you straight to the shrine of intestinal distress. Right behind me is one of the many serene-looking water sources found throughout the Legend of Zelda series. It's beautiful, sparkling even, but it was probably just used as Link's personal bath, laundry, and fish storage all at once. So you might think, wow, what a great place to fill a bottle and rehydrate. But where exactly is this water source? Is it downstream from a stable? Right next to a monster camp? Was Link just swimming in it for 4 hours straight? Because here's the thing, water in real life, it usually needs infrastructure to be drinkable. Like, a lot of infrastructure. Medieval towns relied on wells, aqueducts, and a whole lot of luck to avoid things like cholera and dysentery. But what about in Hyrule? Are they purifying water? Or are the people of Hyrule just drinking swamp water like it's fine wine? Well, my wife and I did months of research into hydrology, water safety, and why that one guy at the stable is definitely about to get dysentery. Yikes. All to figure out if Hyrule's water is actually safe to drink. But to know that for sure, we had to go on a water quest and document every single body of water in Hyrule. In each of Hyrule's 8 regions, we tracked down wells, rivers, lakes, and ponds. Basically, anywhere someone might think to get a drink of water. And we classified each one of those bodies of water as either green, which means it's safe to drink, like top-tier Helian spring water. Or yellow, it's risky. You might be okay. Or you might regret it later. Or the worst, red, which is like eating Taco Bell with black coffee levels of danger. Trust me, you do not want to go there. Learn from my experiences. By the end of our journey, we will have a fantastic visual map of just how great or horrible Hyrule's water infrastructure actually is. And if you voted on a community poll some 4 to 6 months ago, stick around, because at the very end of the video, we'll reveal the safest drinking water in all of Hyrule. Let's dive right in. We started our research in the Hebra region, a frozen wasteland full of howling winds, icy cliffs, and the crushing realization that you forgot to pack enough spicy peppers. Our first stop? Well, Rito Village, of course. You know, the only place in Hebra with anything resembling civilization. But the location they chose, it's actually just before things start getting a little bit too cold to maybe survive. It's quite beautiful here, actually. But unfortunately, Rito Village is kind of a red flag for water quality. Let me explain. For starters, the armor shop is perched directly above the lake. And depending on what they're rinsing off back there, you could be dumping some heavy metals and toxins right into the water, which is great news if you're a fish trying to evolve into a bokoblin. But that raises a more alarming question. One we'll be asking in every town we visit. Where do they poop? Like, seriously, there are no pipes here, no outhouses, not even a suspicious bucket in the corner of one of the shops. It's just wooden platforms, polite smiles, like everyone's pretending the problem simply floats away. Now, all animal poop has one thing in common. It can contaminate water. And that's because it carries bacteria that can make anyone who drinks the water sick. Take birds like our feathered Rito friends here. Their poop isn't usually packed with the nastiest pathogens, but it is loaded with nitrogen. So the big question is, does that nitrogen actually matter? Well, when there is too much nitrogen in the water, things can start going downhill. It causes algae to grow out of control, creating huge slimy mats that blanket the water's surface. But the trouble doesn't end there, no. Once the algae die off, bacteria roll in for the ultimate all-you-can-eat buffet. The catch, though? While these bacteria are feasting, they're also gulping down all the oxygen in the water, leaving very little left for anything else to breathe. And the result is something terrible. It's a dead zone. And yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. With no oxygen left, fish and other aquatic life suffocate and die. Yeah, that's not ideal. And once everything's dead, well, then it all starts to decay, which adds even more bacteria and makes the water even worse. It's a vicious, nasty cycle. So yeah, still water or no moving water plus a lot of bird poop, that's a recipe for disaster. But that begs the question, are there any redeeming water features in Hebra? Or is this region just one big frozen cesspool? Well, there actually are some. At the end of the lake, surrounding Gerudo village, we see a massive waterfall. And that's actually great news for water quality. You see, waterfalls and rapids are one of nature's water purifiers. They oxygenate the water, which is great for someone looking for a drink. You see, bacteria need oxygen to help process their food. The more oxygen in the water, the faster these bacteria munch through their food, and once they're out of food, well, sadly, they die. Surprisingly, turns out even small microbes need food to live. So the more oxygen in the water, the faster the bacteria disappear. So this is a huge plus for water quality. And there are a ton of small pools throughout the waterfalls of Hebra. So that's getting a green light for drinking from these cold mountain springs. But does one waterfall save an entire lake full of, well, bird poop? Probably not. So we are going to have to give this lake a yellow rating. Drinker beware! Bird poop water is probably not great for you. Now, if you played Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, you might be thinking, MamaGoron, why are you looking at the lake when there is a well right outside of Gerudo village, just to the north? Surely they are drinking from the well. Huh? Surely. Well, let's go have a look. Now, wells are interesting because they don't pool from lakes or rivers. They tap into something deeper, groundwater. Think of groundwater as a hidden water supply that lives under the ground, soaked into layers of soil and sand, and also rock. Unlike surface water like lakes, ponds, or streams, groundwater isn't always connected to what you see on the surface. It's buried deeper, often filtered through layers of earth before reaching the well. But here's the catch. Just because it's underground doesn't mean it's necessarily safe. Groundwater may not look connected to the nearby sources of water, but it is connected to what's happening on the surface, especially when it comes to pollution. And yes, that includes poop. Rainwater can carry contaminants from factories, farms, and even improperly placed latrines. You know, that can all go down into the ground. Eventually, that makes its way into the well. So even if a village has a fancy-looking well, it's only as clean as what's happening uphill from it. So let's look at Rita's well. It's actually looking pretty good. It's in the middle of nowhere, which means there's really nothing that can contaminate it around it. So other than the inconvenience of hauling water that far, this might actually be a great spot to get water. Although a little awkward for the Gerudo, I guess they're flying pails of water across the lake. Yeah. So that's it for Hebra. If you're out in the wilds, find a waterfall, and if you're near Gerudo Village, well, you're on your own. I hope you brought a life straw. So next up, we're headed over to Eldin Mountain. Death Mountain. Home. Oh, look, there's Hyrule Castle. Oh boy, that looks kind of terrible. But don't worry, we'll get to that later. So let's head over to the Gorons and see what's happening in Goron City. Do we have drinkable water? Do I need to start boiling my water before I drink it here? Well, at first appearance, this looks pretty great. Look at all the waterfalls here running down through the town. Also, the water here, it's practically boiling. And that is due to, Death Mountain. Death Mountain spring water. I am sure that has to be safe, right? Right, guys? Right? Well, hot springs can be safe. The heat actually kills off most bacteria. But here's the twist. Some bacteria called extremophiles love the heat. And yeah, they can still be dangerous if you drink them. And it's not just bacteria. Hot springs usually dissolve a bunch of minerals from the surrounding rocks, like magnesium, sulfur, and bicarbonate, which is a fancy word of saying baking soda. Now, these minerals aren't necessarily harmful in, small amounts, but they will make the water taste and smell kind of awful. Even worse, they mess with the water's pH levels. pH is a measure of how acidic or basic the water is. The best way to kind of think about it is stomach acid versus drain cleaner. They're complete opposites on the pH scale, both equally undrinkable, unless some of you are taking some sort of TikTok challenge. So all those minerals leaching into the water, they make the pH rise. And with that, we're going to be headed to the drain cleaner end of the scale. If the pH climbs above 9, the water's officially undrinkable. Short term, you're looking at a nasty taste and probably a pretty solid stomach ache. Keep drinking it? Well, you can say goodbye to your kidneys.
Oh, no!
So that's it, right? That's definitely the worst thing happening in the water in Eldin. Oh, wait, I forgot. Death Mountain. Yeah, it's a freaking volcano. I mean, just look at the air here. It's full of ash. And take a wild guess as to where all that ash is going. Yep, straight into the water. Ash can seriously mess up water quality. For starters, it introduces toxic heavy metals like copper and arsenic. Because, arsenic never actually hurt anyone, right? Like ever? But it doesn't stop there. Ash may also carry other nasty stuff like fluorine, magnesium, and like I've mentioned before, sulfur. On top of all of that, ash increases something called turbidity. Basically, it makes the water look cloudy or murky. And here's why that's a big deal. Cloudy water blocks UV rays from the sun, which normally help disinfect the water by killing off bacteria. That's right, it's a bacteria disco party up in there. Volcanoes also give off gases like sulfur dioxide. When that stuff gets up into the atmosphere and mixes with rain, you get, well, you probably guessed it, acid rain. They don't call it Death Mountain for nothing. So, all the water problems in Eldin are just because of the volcano, right? I mean, we got hot springs, ash, toxic gases. It's all natural, right? Well, not quite. You know us, Gorons. We need that sweet, sweet rock roast from time to time. And that means mines. Yep, that's right. The Gorons dug too greedily and too deep. And what did they find? Well, they found acid mine drainage. Yeah, that totally sounds like some sort of Magic Gathering card. So what is acid mine drainage? Well, it happens when rocks containing sulfides get exposed to air and water. That reaction leaches out heavy metals and sulfuric acid. And where do those go? Yeah, straight downhill to the nearest water source. Every single time it goes downhill. So Death Mountain isn't looking great, at all. But do Gorons have any water infrastructure here that might help? Well, not that we can see. There are no wells, and since the houses are built right into the rock here, we don't see any plumbing either. So the Gorons and their Helian visitors, well, they might be drinking straight from the contaminated water flowing through town. But wait, you might be thinking, hey, you skipped the water around the Lost Woods over here. Is that any cleaner? Well, it's not a volcano, so there's that. But no, it's not great either. The water there is deep, slow-moving, and sometimes blanketed in fog. That means no oxygen, no sunlight, and zero chance for natural disinfection. And if that wasn't bad enough, we found a lot of it is filled with debris, broken bits of building, and well, dead things just floating around here and all the gloom. Honestly, that sounds worse than the night of Taco Bell and black coffee. So, would I drink the water in Eldin? No, I would not. It's a huge red flag, like all of it. 0 out of 10. Would not drink again because I literally would be dead. Okay, well, I think we need a vacation to find some water here that might be fresher. So let's talk about Akkala. Right off the bat, Akkala is already looking a lot better than Eldin. Have you seen the Spring of Power? It's packed with chilly cascading falls. And honestly, if I had to drink water anywhere in Akkala, this here, I'd be drinking from this. 100%. But hey, no place is perfect. And we still need to go look at the towns. Specifically, we wanted to see how Terrytown was looking. And, well, just like the Rito, Terrytown is surrounded by a huge lake. Right off the bat, we're dealing with deep, still water, which means no UV disinfecting from the sun. And it also means no movement to stir in oxygen. Not a great start. And you know probably at this point what's the next question we have to ask. Where do they poop? Well, we looked around, and there are no outhouses or toilets, which means, yeah, it's likely all going down straight into the lake. And to make matters worse, the sides of Terrytown's islands are basically vertical cliffs. Now, here's the problem with that. When contaminants like, poop, run off into the water, the steeper the slope, the faster and more intense the runoff. There's nothing stopping it. The runoff just goes straight into the lake. Plop. Immediately, we're going to give this place a red rating. But there is a well near town. Maybe that'll save Terrytown. It's called the construction site well, and yeah, that doesn't exactly scream drinkable. If you remember from Breath of the Wild, Terrytown is a brand new settlement. They're building everything from scratch, and with all that construction, they're dumping dirt, debris, oil, paint, basically a cocktail of toxic chemicals right into that lake. And they're letting it leach straight into the groundwater. Awkward. So is Akkala just another Hebra situation? Where out in the wild you're fine, but in town it falls apart? Actually, surprisingly, no. The builders of Terrytown were pretty smart. Unlike Rito Village, they actually built a fountain right in the middle of town. And why does that matter? Well, back in ancient times, fountains were not just for decoration. They were classic drinking water sources, especially in places without access to clean natural water. The water in fountains gets disinfected by the sun and gets fully oxygenated as it flows and splashes around. It's simple, yeah, but effective. So Akkala actually is starting to look pretty good. Out in the wild, I would recommend just find a cold waterfall. In town, maybe grab a ladle and hit up that center fountain. That's a solid green light for Akkala. Okay, onward we go to Lanayru, home of the Zora. This has to be the best water in Hyrule, right? I mean, they're fishy guys, or mammal guys. Guys that live in water. So it better be clean. And if we start at the highest point here, we're already off to a great start. I mean, just look at this fountain. Starting from Mipha's Court here and Shatterback Point, you can see all of this gorgeous water flowing through the fountains and cascading waterfalls as it makes its way down to Zora's domain. Personally, if I came upon this, I would 100% drink this water. It's flowing, shallow, and has zero debris. I mean, not even dead leaves. This is basically an open-air aqueduct, which we're giving this entire area a solid green rating. Okay, but what happens once you're inside of Zora's domain? Well, there are even more fountains. Now, there is some water underneath the main building structure here. And at first, we were a little concerned. We thought it might be filled with, well, poop. But if the water is moving and aerated, that might be okay. I mean, maybe don't drink straight from the spot where the poop meets the water. Don't drink the poop water! But the water downstream might be okay, especially if it gets cleaned up a little bit. And the water does immediately leave that area and heads through more waterfalls. The water's moving and aerated, and that helps a lot to keep it clean. With all that oxygen, the bacteria will eat very quickly and will die off very quickly. It's basically a natural filtration system. And speaking of natural filtration, all that crisp, oxygenated water flows down into Lanayru wetlands. Now you might be thinking, wait, aren't wetlands bad for water quality? But actually, you'd be wrong. Wetlands are amazing natural filters. The waterfalls upstream help knock out bacteria, but the wetlands, they take care of dirt, debris, and toxins. As the water slows down, all that stuff starts to settle to the bottom. And then the plants get to work. Plants help remove excess nutrients, like, nitrogen. We talked about that being in bird poop. But they also help trap chemical pollutants in the soil. But here's the twist. Wetlands have a secret superpower. There are special microbes living in the wetlands that can actually convert toxic chemicals into non-toxic forms. And that is super cool. So did we find it? Did we find the perfect source of water in all of Hyrule? Well, Lanayru is not all sunshine and roses, or waterfalls and wetlands in this case. Let's take a look at East Reservoir Lake. Now, as we've said before, lakes aren't usually great for drinking water. Deep, still water is basically a bacteria's playground. But hey, at least nothing too wild is going on here, right? Oh, wait, what is that? Oh yeah, this is the giant whirlpool sucking everything down into the ancient waterworks. Totally normal. Now, to be fair, it's pretty cool that the ancient Zora built complex water systems. We're talking huge pipes, stone aqueducts, and actual pumps designed to move and direct water across massive distances. But let's get back to this whirlpool here. Is it actually helping the water quality in the reservoir? All that movement here and oxygenation has to be good, right? Well, maybe, but probably not. See, while the whirlpool does stir in some oxygen, it's also churning up everything at the bottom of the reservoir. Like, decades or even centuries of dead fish, rotting plants, mud, sludge. My opinion of the CDI Zelda games. So would I drink the water here? Nope. I'm good. Overall, Lanayru has pretty great water quality. Turns out, the Fishman Dolphin guy does a pretty good job with water. And probably that's because when you live in water, that makes you care a lot about its quality. So Lanayru, it's getting a green rating from us. Just avoid the giant whirlpool. Now we're moving on to Necluda. All of that amazing water from Lanayru flows right into Necluda. And that's also where Link and Zelda live, right? So it has to have clean water, right? Okay, let's break this down. Starting off with the Twin Peaks region. You remember this from Breath of the Wild and both Tears of the Kingdom. It's kind of the same place, they don't really change it much. We've got a river now running pretty fast through it. And so far, that's a solid start. And hey, there's even a small well. Though, it's unstable, which is not ideal for a well. anytime we have livestock around, that means a lot of animal feces leaching into the water. But, okay, let's check it out anyway. We got some fish down here. That's not great, but wait a second. Is that?
Huh?
Wait. What is that? Is that a well inside of a well? Okay, that is weird, but sure, whatever. Let's go down this one too and check it out. All right, more of the, some kind of dirty, nasty things here too, so nothing too, oh my God! Is that another well? Who designed this? How many wells do you need? There's clearly no clean water here. Stop digging. And even if there was clean water, these idiots contaminated it by giving animals access to it. But even worse than that, there's a ladder going down into this well. So whatever animal poop is on your boot is likely going into the well as you go down the ladder. Normally, when you dig a well, you go straight down until you hit groundwater. Basically the point where the soil is saturated enough to collect water naturally. Then above ground, the structure gets built a cover that goes on top. And that's not just for safety. It keeps out debris, leaves, and, well, anything that a bird might contribute to the local ecosystem. In the past, people used a rope and bucket to haul water up a well. Simple, but effective. And there was zero electricity required. These days, though, we use pumps. Way faster. Also cleaner, and less of an arm workout. Now, when a well runs dry, it's not just the hole that's empty. It usually means the aquifer, that underground water source, has been depleted. Imagine it as the world's most inconvenient stamina meter, that it only refills when it rains. That means the only ways to get more water are to move or dig deeper. But back in medieval times, digging deeper wasn't exactly practical. It was dangerous, labor-intensive, and often not worth the risk. So it might be somewhat realistic that villagers are trying to dig a deeper well for more water, except they didn't dig straight down. This is less impressive engineering and more base building gone rogue. It's like that one friend I had when we were building Minecraft fortresses together, and I left the server. So yeah, the well here, it isn't helping us at all. And any part of the river downstream from the stable is probably going to be red or a yellow zone too. And even worse than that, there aren't any waterfalls or rapids to help clean out all that animal poop. Now, if we head south, there is another river that looks pretty promising. It starts up in the mountains and runs fast and clear. Things are looking pretty good, but there's a problem. Once it joins up with these other rivers, Monster Central. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say monsters probably aren't great for water quality. Not only do they poop, but they're also probably chucking all kinds of weird stuff in the water. But hey, the water here eventually flows into this grate thing, and that might be helping, at least a little while. See, metal grates are actually a common first line of defense for water filtration. They catch large debris that could be contaminating the water. So if there are any rusty swords or mysterious monster parts like toenails in the water, they'll stop here. But unfortunately, that's about it. The grate is not going to do much with catching anything smaller like chemicals or bacteria. And if no one is going out to clean this grate off regularly, well, it will get clogged and stop the flow of water. So yeah, this water, it's not looking good either. And we're going to go ahead and call it now. It's a solid red rating. And unhappily, I have to report that it only gets worse towards Hotno Village. It passes through ruins and hits these still stagnant areas where the water just, sits. Ugh. Yeah, hard pass on this. So Is there any hope for Hatno Village? If they can't drink from the river, where can they get clean water? Wells. This place is absolutely overrun with wells because, wells have been such a reliable source of water so far in this game. But hey, maybe this is their chance to shine in this game. All right, come on, Hatno. Don't let us down. Let's check this out. All right, doesn't look too bad down here. There's nothing in the water, so that's good. At least nothing that I can see. Did you guys hear that? Wait a second. Are those monster sounds? Okay, guys. I can't believe they decided to keep you guys down here. And when did you move in? Do you even have like a permit or like a residence document? Why can't this game just have a normal well? When we first jumped down here, we actually had hope. There's water, that's great. And hey, it's not in a stable this time. So maybe, just maybe, this is clean water straight from ground source. But as I just pointed out, these guys are down here. Monsters living in your well is not good for water quality. And even worse, all the wells in Hatno are connected. You can literally go down a well and pop out of another on the other side of town. So the monsters are literally in all the water. And as frustrating as that is, it might be historically accurate. I mean, not the monster part, but the connected wells part. Anyway, it turns out wells being connected by underground channels or tunnels is a very real thing. Most famous examples of these are the Persian qanats. I hope I said that right. These were made of a series of vertical wells all connected underground by gently sloping tunnels. This allowed the Persians to tap into the groundwater where it was most abundant and transport it over really long distances using just gravity. This is an incredible system for getting cool, clean drinking water before we had anything like electric pumps. In fact, systems like this popped up all over the world, including Peru and Turkey. So maybe Hatno tried to take one from the history books here and just didn't get the details quite right. Luckily though, there is at least one well in Hatno that isn't connected to a secret network of monster tunnels. And it's the one right behind Link's house. Zoom in here and what do we find? Well, there's a ladder covered in muddy boot prints. And if you look just below that, a wooden landing, perfectly positioned to block your bucket. 10 out of 10 for craftsmanship, 0 for functionality. But hey, Zelda looks like she's been making her study down here. She probably just really needed to get away from Link because, boy, doesn't he just talk your ear off. Let's be real. Hatno Village is a hard red zone. But hey, maybe there is hope in the nearby lake, which this lake, it looks good until you realize it's next to the ranch where all the animals have full access to the water. You know what? I quit. Necluda has officially some of the worst water in Hyrule. So are there any redeeming water sources here? Well, surprisingly, actually, there is one. If we head north, tucked just below Kakariko Village, there is a small river. And we don't see anything too alarming here. So if we had to live in Necluda, Kakariko would be the spot. There's a waterfall nearby and a charming little stream running directly through town. Plus, we also see some vegetation like lily pads, which can help the water, kind of like a mini wetland. Is it as good as Lanayru? No. But would I drink it? Yeah, probably. I'd rate it green just after the waterfall here, then yellow once it flows through town. And that's just in case Bob decides to throw his sake when he's drunk into the river. Yeah, by the way, did you know Kakariko Village has sake? No, you didn't? Well, you might want to check out another video we've done called The Bizarre Food Economy of Zelda, in which we talk about that very thing. But, you know what? Maybe watch that after this, and let's leave all the craziness in Necluda behind. Next up, we're talking about Faron. Now, the Faron region presents a new challenge. Trees. Lots of trees. I know these aren't the first trees that we've seen, but this is definitely the densest vegetation we've encountered along the rivers so far. Now, trees can be good and bad for water quality. The good part, they create a strong riparian zone. Basically, all those roots act like nature's duct tape, keeping soil, mud, and random forest gunk from sliding into the water every time it rains. That's a solid win. But trees aren't all good. They also shade the water, which reduces the UV disinfecting from the sun. And worse, they dump a ton of leaves into the water, into the river. So if that river isn't moving very fast, those leaves just sit there and rot. Yummy. Luckily, some of the rivers in Faron flow into a series of waterfalls. And I mean, wow, look at this place. It's absolutely beautiful. All of this, and I mean all of it, is probably excellent water. It's in direct sunlight and tons of oxygen is being thrown to this. It does dump into a big reservoir like lake here, so maybe don't drink from the middle there of that. But by any of these waterfalls, dang, that's got to be a good drink of water. Great. Now I'm thirsty. All this water talk. This absolutely makes this probably the best spot to drink around here. We also still have a strong riparian zone with lots of vegetation holding the banks together, but not the thick forest cover like we had before. Okay, but there is another river here that runs down to the south, and that river looked pretty promising at first. This is the Minot River that's flowing down from Cora Lake. We realized not only do monsters live next to the water, but the river, also connects to the ocean. And that means for a good stretch, this water is something called brackish. It's a fancy word for saying half water, half salt water. And unfortunately, it's 100% undrinkable. Now, I don't know if you're crazy enough to have ever tried drinking salt water. Maybe you did on a TikTok challenge. But unless you're trying to lose a hydration contest with a raisin, I recommend passing. So all this water, all this brackish water, probably not good for you. Now, if we head a little more eastward, we hit Lurelin Village. This was one of my favorite places to investigate in the bizarre food economy of Zelda. The video that I mentioned before that we recently had released. It has tons of good food here and is basically a tropical paradise. I mean, look, literally the Gerudo come here just to chill out. Probably on a date. Hope he, maybe make some eggs back home. I'll leave you to it, dude. Okay, but Lurelin runs against the sea, which is all salt water. So, if you're living here, where are you getting a drink from? So, where are they getting a fresh drink of water? Well, just a few hundred steps away is this beautiful little waterfall that goes into a small pond. And I can tell you this looks incredibly refreshing. The water here is likely runoff from the mountains above. Up there, the ice cover is slowly melting from the sun, and that sounds super clean. But the thing is, ice melt can be pretty variable. It all depends on the quality of the water that went into the ice in the first place. If it's freshly fallen snow melt, that's generally considered safe to drink. But if it's glacial ice, well, that's a whole different story. Sure, glacial ice looks crystal clear and pristine, but it can be contaminated with heavy metals, animal waste, and even bacteria and parasites. Some of the nastiest things like E. coli can survive freezing in dormant states. And when the ice melts, well, they come right back to life, ready to make everyone get the seasonal flu or something a lot worse. But hey, it might not be all bad. I mean, ice melt is usually safe if there aren't any contaminants around. And with the great waterfall bringing oxygen to the mix here, we think that things are actually looking pretty good. Wow, man, Faron is not bad. But there is one last place we need to investigate in Faron, and that is the famous Lake Hylia. Now, right off the bat, Lake Hylia has a bit of a whirlpool problem. Yeah, just like East Reservoir Lake back in Lanayru, whirlpools don't make for the tastiest water. And this one, just like East Reservoir, you can actually go down into. And if you do, you find yourself in a cave. Now, this is probably not affecting the water up in the lake above, but, well, something else probably is. You see, this here is a glee rock, and it literally chills out on the massive bridge over the lake. And he doesn't really move much unless you interact with him. So I have to ask the question, where's the three-headed dragon pooping? But worse than that, than any of the glee rock or the whirlpool or any of that stuff, is that Lake Hylia is fed by the rivers in Central Hyrule. Now, we haven't talked about Central Hyrule yet, but stick around until the end of the video to find out why I definitely don't recommend drinking water flowing out of Central Hyrule. And once we do, it'll be kind of obvious why you don't want to drink from this lake. For now, though, you want to just take my word for it. Avoid the glee rock poop. So yeah, Faron, it's a little bit of a wash. Get it? A little bit of a wash. Basically, West Faron is pretty horrible, but East Faron is a tropical paradise of the freshest water you can get. Overall, I'd call it a pretty neutral area, and we decided to give this a yellow rating. Now, before we go to Central Hyrule, there is one last place we need to go. Yeah, we need to go to the desert. This here is Gerudo Desert, and I know what you're thinking. It's a desert. There is barely any water in deserts. But surprisingly, there are actually some notable water sources here in Gerudo Desert. Let's check them out. First up, we have the oasis at Karakara Bazaar. This is typically your first stop on the way into the desert. It looks peaceful, serene, and super inviting, refreshing even. Don't fall for it. See, oasis water can be wildly unpredictable. And while we can't say for sure how safe this one is, the odds are not great. For one, the desert heat causes serious evaporation, which basically concentrates salts and other contaminants until you basically have just salt water. Or, more accurately, a slushy of disappointment, especially if you've had to wander the desert for any amount of time. And on top of that, the water here, it's still, and it's hot. There's almost no oxygen and zero water movement here. It's a 5-star resort for bacteria and a one-way ticket to Regret Town for anyone who decides to take a sip. But hey, there is a silver lining here. There's no poop and no dead leaves. But let's be real, in the desert, probably any water is good. I just recommend maybe boiling it first before drinking it. Still, the low water quality of the oasis might explain why the Gerudo decided to dig a well right next to it. Yeah, kind of funny when you think about it. Like, you have oasis water here, but then someone decided to dig a well not far away. When I first saw this, I literally thought how odd it was when I was playing the game. You know, before doing any of this YouTube research stuff. And oh my gosh, wouldn't you believe it, this well actually has water in it. And there's no weird monsters. Oh my gosh, Nintendo actually did it. Holy crap, Nintendo made a normal well. Now if we can only get them to make a normal weapon repair system. Okay, back on track though. This well is connected to the groundwater with no obvious sources of contamination. It's probably one of the better places to drink in the whole region. So if you're wandering the desert and you see the oasis, go for the well. Green pin. Okay, but what about other water sources available in Gerudo Desert? Well, before we head to the obvious Gerudo town itself, let's take a quick look to the north of Gerudo Desert to the Gerudo Highlands. This is actually pretty decent. And with the ice here at the top likely melting down into these rivers and lakes below, it's probably not bad for the most part. And thanks to the rocky ground, there's not much dirt or debris getting in. Also, there's very little trees, if not any, and not many monsters hanging around. So we decided we're going to give this area a solid yellow rating, borderline almost green. Okay, alright, now let's get to Gerudo Village. Gerudo Village. When I first played through Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I didn't really pay much attention to the water here in Gerudo Village. But let me tell you, these ladies, they have it all figured out. I mean, MamaGoron was literally nerding out about the water supply for like a long time. Just like in Lanayru, if we start at the highest point in Gerudo Town, we see a fountain. But what makes this fountain special, you might ask? Well, it's something called an artesian well. And artesian wells are incredibly cool. It means that this doesn't need a pump, and no mechanical or electrical help needed to actually bring water to the surface. Why? Because the groundwater it taps into is actually under pressure. In this case, it's likely fed by the groundwater from Gerudo Highlands, which, sits at a higher elevation than the village. That elevation creates pressure, so when you dig a well down into the valley, bam! You get clean, oxygenated water, and that's all flowing naturally to the surface. Kind of incredible, and a near infinite water supply, which, amazingly, requires no effort. It's fresh, free, and ready to drink. But that's not all. Artesian wells usually form in confined aquifers. That means the groundwater exists under a thin layer of impenetrable stone. And what does that mean? Well, as you might be guessing, it means zero pollutants from the surface can actually leach down into the water. And that's pretty dang clean. Oh, but the ladies of Gerudo Village didn't stop there. Oh no, they decided to build an incredible system of above-ground aqueducts that carry water through sunlight, letting it naturally get disinfected by UV radiation. Then get this, the water, it plummets down into underground aquifers. And this is so that every building in the village has its own personal spot to dip a bucket to get perfectly clean, cool water. It's just all massively impressive. When the development team was designing this game, they had to know a lot of this stuff because this is so well done here in Gerudo Village compared to the rest of Hyrule. I personally think they did this in order to show off how sophisticated the Gerudo actually were. The fact that these people were not only fantastic warriors, but they're incredible engineers. Gorons, we gotta step it up, yo. So Gerudo, for us, this entire area, we're labeling green. Yeah, you have some bad sources of water, but even if you were a complete idiot when it came to survival, you have a 50% chance of drinking clean water here. That's honestly incredible when you think about it, like the desert of all places. But our journey leaves us now to only one place left to explore. And as you know, we've kind of been dreading it the whole time. Central Hyrule. Let's just get it out of the way. Rip the Band-Aid right off. Central Hyrule is pretty much completely terrible in this game. And that's mostly because of the gloom being everywhere. Now, if you haven't played Tears of the Kingdom by any chance, you might not know that gloom is poisonous and actively makes people sick in the game. You find this out within the first hour of the game when you're talking to various NPCs. You find out men, women, and children are all getting sick due to the gloom. So I'm just going to say, I don't think it's a stretch to say it's probably not great for water either. If something in the air is bad for you, then that very same thing being in water probably is not either. But okay, let's back it up for a second. A lot of water in central Hyrule actually starts up in Gerudo Highlands, which means it begins as nice, clean mountain runoff flowing down to the plains. But as the main river heads north and approaches Hyrule Castle, yeah, as we noted before, it's all gloom there. And I mean, that gloom covers a huge region of northern central Hyrule. And so that means the northern part of central Hyrule gets an automatic red rating. I mean, it literally has toxins in the air. Like, worse than ash. Now, there are a few wells in this area, but between the horse poop and the gloom, it's not looking great. Now, up on the Great Plateau, we thought things might be looking up finally. The water here is actually coming from melting ice, which we have talked about numerous times before. Ice melt can be safe to drink. And this all happens before the gloom shows up. It's nowhere near the castle. So this area actually is relatively contaminant free. So we're giving the ice-fed rivers here a cautious yellow rating, similar to the others. But you might be asking yourself, what about Lookout Landing? Now, that's an interesting question, because in Tears of the Kingdom, we see that they have a great water feature here. This is a lot like the amazing system that the Gerudo set up, or maybe even similarly to Terrytown's water, and if we look no further, I would say this probably stemmed from some sort of groundwater spring. But in Tears of the Kingdom, we actually find out that the royal family's secret hideout is under there, and we find more fountains with running water. Again, this is likely coming from groundwater, but now we're thinking some ancient pumps might be involved. In normal times, I would say the royal family has done a great job here. Green flag. But I don't know if you've noticed, these aren't normal times. And Lookout Landing is right next to the castle. You know, the floating one with all the gloomy monsters. And unfortunately, from here on out, pretty much all water in central Hyrule is either in the gloom or flowing downstream from it. That's a major problem for the drinking water. And eventually, guess where all this water ends up? Yep, like we mentioned before, it ends up in Lake Hylia, which is not good for the Faron region at all. And that's it. We've officially investigated all the waters of Hyrule. And wow, that was a bumpy ride. We found some truly awful places and some surprisingly drinkable ones too. And from all our research, honestly, I think the Gerudo, they could probably make a fortune bottling their water and selling it to the people of Necluda. So, our opinion, we think the best place to get a drink of water is surprisingly the Gerudo region, in our opinion. But hey, you know, let's check in on that poll from 6 months ago that I teased. And let's see what you all thought was the best place to get water. Wow, this is actually not bad. I'm really happy to see that you guys put some thought into this. I mean, I am so happy to see that only 9% of you thought Central Hyrule is a good place to get a drink of water. I'm going to be honest, I thought that was going to be way higher. I mean, me initially, I was thinking I would choose that place. And hey, Hebra and Lanayru are super up there. Dang, guys! Great job. Wow. Well, I think all of you probably would have survived Hyrule's water given what you voted. Funnily enough, no one said Akkala. Smart. That's very smart. I mean, that's a smart. Not to go for any of the poop water around Terrytown. But hey, I'm going to ask you guys right now, who do you think has the best water in Hyrule? Is it the high-tech Gerudo? Or the waterfalls that are blessed in Lanayru? And tell me, who do you think has it the worst? I mean, there is a lot of red on this map. Let us know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe and stay hydrated out there. My name is MamaGoron. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.
Where have you been? Been searching all along. Confusing twilight on and on without a clue.
Okay, so we have reviewed Zelda's food, and now we have done their water. I mean, what's next? What's next? Come on. Think. Poop, this is hard. What would you guys like to watch? Wait. Oh my god. Poop! Where does everyone poop? I mean, have you seen any outhouses? Oh wow. Now that is going to be a crappy video.
I'm a shapeshifter at post masquerade. Hiding both face and mind. All free for you to draw. I'm a shapeshifter. What else should I be? Please don't take off my mask. Revealing dark.